Greetings, YouTube. It's time to talk about slavery a little. Dear disgruntled white plantation visitors, sit down. The Old South may be your American Downton Abbey, but it is our American horror story. Even under the best circumstances, it represents the extraction of labor, talent, and life we can never get back. When I do this work, it drains me, but I do it because I want my ancestors to know not only are they not forgotten, but I'm here to testify that I am their wildest dreams manifest. Michael W. Twitty discusses his work honoring his ancestors in the sense of doing tours of plantations. Now you see, there was a disgruntled white visitor to a plantation who got very annoyed when there was all this talk about slavery. And there just wasn't enough of seeing the lovely house and all its lovely furnishings and its decor, and hearing about the lovely white people that lived in that lovely house that was built and maintained and existed because of the slavery system that existed at the time it was constructed and maintained. They didn't want to hear about that part. They just wanted all the pretty stuff. Now, there's a pull quote later in the discussion here, which I'm going to quote. In South Carolina, there was the time that 4 of you walked in grinning and salivating as you often do, and were all ready to be regaled of the good old days until a German tourist scratched your record. He said, "How do you feel as a black American dressing like your ancestors and cooking and working this way?" You started to frown. I said slavery was colloquial and discretionary. One story doesn't tell all, but it's important to remember that our ancestors survived this, survived slavery. He pushed me further. You gestured toward the door. How do people feel about slavery? My retort was fast. How do you feel about the Shoah? How do you feel about the Holocaust? The German said the Holocaust was a terrible thing and never should have happened. We were children when Germany was coming out of the ashes, but it was a shame upon our nation. As the 4 of you turned to leave, I got in a good one. That's a phrase you will almost never hear some white Southerners say. Slavery was a terrible thing and never should have happened. There are places in America where if you bring that concept to an educational class of children, you will be accused of pushing a progressive liberal agenda. If you say slavery was bad and it should have never happened. It was very recently did many Southern history books still refer to it as the War of Northern Aggression. And slavery has constantly been downplayed as the cause of the war. The Civil War is said to be about states' rights. Yes, the right to sell your fellow human beings. No, Civil War was about slavery, period. Interestingly, the southern states themselves had actually had fewer protections for state rights than did the Union, because it wasn't about states' rights. It was about preserving slavery, because that's what they wanted. It was the economic model that they knew, and they were afraid that the economic model being put forth by the North, which is an economic model that didn't have overt slavery, was one that was going to roll over them like a steamroller. And so they fought back and rebelled to preserve slavery. And now in a modern America, we have people going to plantations as vacation spots. Now, I love Ryan Reynolds. I think he is a gift to the world of entertainment and a really nice dude. He got married on a plantation. Fuck you, Ryan. They're not places to hold weddings. There's no more appropriate than holding a wedding at Auschwitz. They are an open wound in our nation that we have to address. That it will never heal until white Americans finally come face to face with the reality of slavery. And for most Americans, they never have. They never think about it because they never have to. And their history books let them down. And the teachers that teach history let them down. Now, some people don't let them down. They don't like that. They don't like when someone points out that, hey, slavery was a shitty thing. It was horrible to people. It destroyed entire generations, and it created the foundation for generational poverty in America that still exists today. Not to mention all of the racism that existed after slavery. In fact, the nadir of race relations in America were the 1920s. Yes, the race relations in the 1920s were worse than they were during the slave era. Because white people had begun to realize that we're not in quite as much control as we thought. Not to mention, there were black veterans that had come back from World War I saying, I want my fucking rights, and helped plant the seed that became the civil rights movement of the 1960s. So plantations are not places to visit to look at the pretty buildings. Plantations are a place to visit to experience our national shame. To visit the thing that we did as a nation, even if you didn't live here then, my ancestor didn't live here then, but it's still the thing that I, as a white person, have to deal with and confront. Because the system that was laid down then still benefits me today. Because I'm a white dude. And I have a different set of social norms than do brown people or black people in America. So, plantations are not a place to visit just to look at the pretty buildings. They're a place to visit to face our shame, for you to confront our ugly, vile history, and to come a little bit closer to understanding what your neighbors are still experiencing because of the racist system that still exists in America today. But a whole lot of white people don't like that. Too fucking bad.